because that's where the value is. The value is diagnosing and applying the right system, not talking about all the wonderful things you can do for them.
Sequencing is really important because I feel like too many people are trying to see the end of the road from the very beginning, and that's just not the case. Like even recently, we just changed our partner cadence, and it was remarkable because by actually taking things away, they got more value. And so I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, they need more one-on-one calls with me. They need more of this. I need to be doing more of that. And they're trying to stack all this extra value. But what they're probably doing is making it actually harder and more time consuming with more drag for their client, which is actually then stopping or hindering them from actually getting the results that they came to in the first place.
Yeah, fully. Like simplicity is achieved. Real simplicity is achieved through complexity. So the evolution of something is usually not valuable to add things. It's usually more valuable to take them away. And more partnerships and relationships die because of indigestion rather than starvation, because you smother them or you give them too much and they're like, this is too much. And I you know, both business and other types of relationships. But the nature of, you know, the evolution of things is like, simplicity is only the things that person needs to do, and only the things that you need to do. So if you put constraints on it, then you're forced to say, okay, we're only going to do the things that need to do. So your job becomes, for a client, much more diagnosis, because I have lots of answers. I have lots of systems. I can solve lots of different problems, and I've solved most of those problems dozens or hundreds of times before. So your job becomes, you're more like a doctor diagnosing what the illnesses of the business or the you know, the ills of the individual, and then just, okay, there's a system, now go and deploy it, because that's where the value is. The value is diagnosing and applying the right system, not talking about all the wonderful things you can do for them and, you know, and forcing it on. But even me, who have a network, you know, a reputation and credibility, I still have to take those steps back into the market, because, as you say, most people go to, I just want passive income. Like most people's intention of building the business is measuring how little they can work to get the most amount of money. I'm measuring how effective is my work to deliver the most value so I generate the most amount of money.
Very different.
They sound the same, but they're completely different in their intention.
Yeah, I wish everyone could just rewind that and just listen to that over and over again, because I think that's really, really important. Is there an objective measurement in which you are trying to actually gauge that by, and which you're working towards?
The scoreboards the first scoreboard we've got is like setting up how much you work. So I categorize in 3 ways in terms of the output of the business. The time component is, I'm only going to work Tuesdays and Thursdays with client serving work. And just so no one misunderstands me, there are days while I'll sit in my office for 8 hours. You know, I'm editing a book at the moment. You know, it's taking dozens of hours. That's work, but it's not client facing work. The second piece is the energy piece. You know, I proved to myself that I didn't want to acquire the skills of hiring and managing and running a team, because I did it. And I was like, I don't value those things, so I'm out of that. So I have a solo business model, where solo in the sense of I am the person responsible for delivering to clients. I have one assistant, so I'm not on my own, but I am directly, you know, solo delivery model, and that's my energy model. That's the model I've chosen. And then the money model is, you know, effective hourly rate and, you know, daily revenue. And if you want to measure on a revenue per employee basis, I think they're useful metrics as you go along.
Which is funny, because that's one of the metrics I'm moving towards at the moment. And when we had this conversation last week, and it was, how does the target was it's 1.5 million revenue per team member. How do we get towards that? Which I find interesting, because it was a hell of a lot simpler when I actually like went through the thinking process. It was like, oh, this could totally be done. Like, and then I was like, how is it 2 million a year per team member being able to come on board? And then now that it was funny because now that I had like set that as like the benchmark, I'm very diligent about, okay, like where does growth want to go and what are the actual options that we're going to choose for this as well. But I love it how you can almost triangulate how am I going to base my decisions from now on with these different functions that can kind of force me to go the right way. Have you subscribed? If not, this is the best time for you to subscribe, whether you're on the YouTube or on the podcast. Why? Because it would be a bummer if you missed out on everything that's to come, or don't subscribe if you're not actually getting much value out of this, because there is a zillion other things that you could be doing. So I'd rather you go and do that. The ball's in your court.
Yeah, fully. In terms of those, when you put the constraints on it, again, it forces the creativity of, okay, what does the next layer of leverage look like?
I think it's more fun as well.
I've gamified it. Like, how do
there was another day, it was a couple of weeks ago or something like that, but in the message thread with Bolton that we've got, you went back through some SaaS and like you were cutting things out that you were like, doing, we've all got these bloody things that we're paying for that we don't look at the credit card statement, and how fun it is actually cutting those things out and then being able to look at like the profit margin, just like it's still increasing.
Oh, it's a fun game. One of the business cards expired, so I got all the failed payments and I let them come to see which ones I'd missed.
Good decision.
Even though I look at them, $800 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like really disciplined about and diligent about just crappy software, and you accumulate those 197 subscriptions.
Yeah.
So $800 a month. Damn proud of myself.
That's really cool.
It's meaningless in terms of the relative to the profit
but it's fun.
But it's fun in terms of like, how lean can you make it?
Yeah.
But the layers of leverage are, and that sequence that I was talking about continue from there. So, when I put constraints on that, I put 16 people in one-on-one, and I rolled those people into a community. And then I chopped down the number of people that had direct and intimate access to me to 12. So I've got the sovereign circle, which has a maximum of 12 people in it. And then that constraint is there. It will never have more than 12. And people keep asking me, like, because it's full, people keep asking me, are you going to start another? No, the constraint is the point.
Yeah.
Because my energy and the tension is the thing that I'm giving to you. I know intimately what you're doing, what you want, where you're going, etc. And they're paying for that level of energy that I can deploy to that because I constrain it. So I was like, I could do 25 and I'm going to halve it. And in the syndicate, I've capped it at 100 and we've got just over 80 people in there now. And then in the course of delivering the trainings and the workshops that I hold with syndicate people, I'm creating more products. And that flywheel of products is, well, I sell access to those. And that's the next layer of leverage. Yeah. So I built a product called the 3K code, which was sequentially taking someone through making an offer, creating it, selling it for $3,000, doing $3,000 a week to doing $3,000 a day. There's 3 pillars to that. I built it from our community because they were saying, okay, it's great, I've got access to all these things and we can put them together with access, but do you have something that gives me a path, a methodology, a formula to do it? And it's like, yes. So I did that and then turned that into a product and then turned it into a community. And now I've got a couple of people who are inside my syndicate community, coaching and serving people who are inside my 3K community.
So good.
So then as you build up these layers of leverage, you start to deploy different elements of capital. I've deployed intellectual capital by building the 3K code for my people. Then I'm turning that into capital like cash. And then I'm using human capital, which is relationships and people who know my methodologies, to go and help people who are also into those relationships, and the layers of leverage continue. So that's, for me, a fun game. How do I match all these pieces and create that win-win positive flywheel as we go along? Because now I've got these amazing communities, but I've got one that's highly intimate and I know every moving part. And then I've got somewhere, layers out there where I don't know everybody in the community. I don't intimately know their business, etc. But someone in my world does. So we've got that network effect in those pieces. And this is how you create layers of leverage.
If you've enjoyed this episode and it's vibed with you, then make sure that you hit subscribe, whether you're on the YouTube or on the podcast. And importantly, if there is any guests that you want me to have on the show or specific questions or topics that you want me to be able to cover for you, simply put it into the YouTube comments or send me an Instagram DM. That way I can make sure you're getting the most out of actually being here.